includes weapon mastery updates, world bug fixes, and performance tweaks. Be sure to dive into the patch notes for all the details. And we'll see you on the Battlegrounds. Welcome to Update 28.2. Join us for our 7th anniversary celebrations, an all-new SMG experience in the arcade, and finally, the recall system update. We've got lots of surprises in store for you to celebrate our 7th birthday. Erangel's school will be transformed into a festive 7th anniversary venue. Plus, keep an eye out for throwable cupcakes and surprise gift boxes scattered across the starting island of each map. We've been hard at work balancing the SMGs to offer a more unique experience and accommodate various gunplay strategies. The arcade is all set for you to try out these changes, so get that early feel and let us know what you think. And there's more exciting news. Based on your positive feedback, we're expanding the recall system to include Vikendi and Tego. Check out the patch notes to discover all the details of this update. Lastly, this patch also includes weapon mastery updates, world bug fixes, and performance tweaks. Be sure to dive into the patch notes for all the details. And we'll see you on the Battlegrounds. Welcome to Update 28.2. Join us for our 7th anniversary celebrations, an all-new SMG experience in the arcade, and finally, the recall system. We've got lots of surprises in store for you to celebrate our 7th birthday. Erangel's school will be transformed into a festive 7th anniversary venue. Plus, keep an eye out for throwable cupcakes and surprise gift boxes scattered across the starting island of each map. We've been hard at work balancing the SMGs to offer a more unique experience and accommodate various gunplay strategies. The arcade is all set for you to try out these changes, so get that early feel and let us know what you think. And there's more exciting news. Based on your positive feedback, we're expanding the recall system to include Vikendi and Tego. Check out the patch notes to discover all the details of this update. Lastly, this patch includes updates, world bug fixes, and performance tweaks. Be sure to dive into the patch notes for all the details. And we'll see you on the Battlegrounds.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the PUBG Global Series APAC Qualifiers Phase 1. This is Contra here alongside with Extreme to bring you all the action as we've got lots of chicken dinners to cover for the entirety of the day. And Extreme, of course, just got to check in on you for a little bit. How you feeling for today?
I'm feeling exceptional. I truly am. This is the big one. You know, this is the big qualifier in APAC. There's PGC points on the line. There's qualification spots on the line. Obviously, we're going to be playing for those. First, though, we have to get through the playoffs. We went through all these qualifiers earlier on, and then now we've got more qualifiers. But it's the final qualifier, essentially. All of the qualifiers we played before, they're done. They're history now. It's just the playoffs for the APAC qualifier now. And reminder, this goes into PGS 3 and 4. So you're playing for 2 international tournaments in this one competition. So we'll go through the playoffs first, which is 16 teams, and then the top 8 go through to the grand finals, which we will do later. I am incredibly excited to get it started because this is an incredibly stacked lobby with some very talented players.
Absolutely. We've got the best of the best across Asia Pacific as we'll be looking at all the 24 teams that will be competing. And of course, if you guys are new to the PUBG scene, welcome on board. And this is going to be our schedule as we'll be running the playoffs on the weekdays from today all the way to Thursday. And on the weekend, we'll see which teams will be able to join the rest of the pack with the finals. So next week on 2nd of April, as well as on the 3rd, that's where we'll lock in the teams that will be playing in the PGS tree.
Yeah, now we've got some breaks as well. We've got some breaks for these guys to hit the drawing board, essentially, if things don't go their way. We've also got breaks for them to study the finals lobby. And also, you've got that day break in between the first set of finals games and the last set. So if you really struggle, or if you really do well, to be honest with you, then you've got that day break to go over things. But it's non-stop for quite a while. It's not necessarily a grueling schedule, but it is one that's softened a little bit by the breaks in between. You're going to be able to rest in between all of these very intense games. But that said, if you are straight in the finals, you're just watching. You're watching from the sidelines and you're seeing kind of what your competition is. This is kind of where we're at. The 8-seeded teams obviously coming into the playoffs. 3 days here, 16 teams, and again, 3 days worth of action. And then there's 4 days worth of finals action with 16 teams, as it always is in PUBG Esports, March 30th to 31st and April 2nd and 3rd. And then, of course, the top 4 go straight to PGS 3 and 4, granted. I think that graphic's a bit wrong, but yeah, PGS 3 and 4.
That's right, and we'll be looking at which teams will be able to join the best of the world in playing in the PGS tree. Now, gotta ask you this real quick because we got 8-seeded teams that will not be playing during the weekdays here. Would you say that it's a big advantage for them to be able to study some of the teams that will be playing here on the weekdays?
Yes, it absolutely will be. In fact, they'll be looking at drop spots, they'll be looking at tendencies, rotation. I can tell you Twire is going to come into play. Lots of Twire VODs are going to be viewed. But yeah, no, this is the time for those 8-seeded teams that are in the finals to study their competition. And of course, you can kind of assume after probably the first couple days who is guaranteed to make it into that finals lobby. Speaking of finals lobby, these are all the teams we have. The 16 teams playing in the playoffs on the right-hand side, and then the seeded teams who have already qualified for the grand finals on the left-hand side. It's a stacked left-hand side, but we've also got some insane competition on this right-hand side too. So you've got your day trades, you've got your Armory Gamings who were exceptional in the Super Cup, and then you've got some names that hopefully you're quite familiar with, like FTF, like RXE, who had some incredible performances back in that Super Cup as well. Forest Gaming as well. These are names you should know coming out of all of the Asian regions, so it should be a fun tournament.
Yeah, it definitely will be super exciting. And of course, all eyes are on PPS as well as the PVS teams as they have been able to perform internationally for so many tournaments. And they're hoping to prove it once more that they will be one of the best in the APAC region. And of course, we'll definitely be fancying the chances of PJC and the rest of the regions to be able to put up really strong competition throughout this APAC qualifiers. Now, of course, the seeded teams, as listed on your left, will be playing on the next week, as we do have our matches for today to kick off with 2 rounds of Erangel and follow up on match 3. We'll be going into the Snowy Vikendi, and then a round of Tego in match 4, and ending things on match 5 and 6 on Miramar.
Yeah, I'm unsure if this schedule changes up over the 3 days of competition. So we start with Miramar tomorrow or not. But either way, I've said this in the past and I'll say it again. It shouldn't really impact the players. The players will play to the best of their ability, no matter what the map is. That said, having 2 of Erangel and 2 Miramar back-to-back, like we've always had really in PUBG, does set up a nice bit of momentum. And obviously, having those 2 kind of tertiary maps in the middle, being Vikendi and Tago, it can break that momentum a little bit. I'm not going to assume that... I'm not going to say that it's going to mess with the momentum too much, but say you have an incredible performance on Erangel, you move to Vikendi, it's one of those maps where maybe you're not as familiar with it, you crash out, maybe that can mess with the momentum a little bit. Like to think that these guys can reset and go into it in the next game, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll really have to see where that actually makes or breaks certain teams that have been, been a lot more familiar with the classic maps like Erangel as well as Miramar, and throw Vikendi into the mix. Of course, it really depends on how they also manage these kind of early stages of the game, because certain teams, they may not have actually taken too much time to actually go for practice scrims or so. We might even see those hot drops coming in the early game, so who knows? That could be a huge possibility. But I'm pretty stoked for our very first game, as we'll be seeing a lot of all these teams to be able to establish a little bit more of that control and getting a little bit more familiar. Since this is going to be the very first day, they want to get themselves a strong head start to the tournament.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't really think about the potential of hot drops going into this tournament, but I would imagine, I mean, we had those rehearsal scrims yesterday where teams played. Obviously, they were just hot dropping Pachinki and Fairy Fear and all the places they could. So it's a bit of a hard read to understand the drop spots, but they know where everyone drops. They should be posted in the Discord as well. So if we do see hot drops, it's definitely planned. And I'm wondering if you risk that kind of, I mean, you risk losing all those points, right? You risk going out in 16th or 15th. Just to claim a drop spot that you might not even get in the finals, right? There's probably 8 drop spots that are already taken when you move to the finals. I mean, those 8 teams, you can assume that those drop spot locations of theirs are going to be respected. So going into this tournament doesn't really matter. I feel like you just take what you can get. You don't really risk it. You've got 3 days to make it through. You just, even if it's something on the edge of the map, you take what you can get on the edge of the map. You go up to Zaki, you go up to your Staubers if you have to, and you just loot from there, right? Because at the end of the day, what matters is that consistency, that you're able to get those points, claim that top 8 position, and then go through the next round.
Absolutely. Of course, when it comes down to the rules and everything, teams are already very familiar with, the super rules as well as the global settings. And now comes this as well. When we take a look into the qualifiers, certain regions do have maybe 4 weeks of play, and certain ones maybe will have to go in for some of all these rapid rounds. We're looking at Thailand, where they've been playing about 50 over games in order to conclude their series. And man, it has been a heck of a ride for some of these guys. But of course, them getting so many games in, I think that they would feel that they're pretty ready for certain maps like, of course, Erangel as well as Miramar. I think that Vietnam will be able to do the same. But when we look at other regions like the PCR, PMS, as well as PJC, I wonder how well would they cope with it.
Yeah, I mean, having a bunch of practice leading into a tournament like this, even if it's just local practice, that's really good. 54 games for Thailand. Maybe that's one of the reasons Thailand is so dominant, right? If you're playing 54 competitive games leading up very closely, by the way, leading up very closely to one of the most, or the most important qualifier of the start of this year, that's a lot of practice. I mean, the Oceanic teams, right? They don't get that many games. The rest of SEA, they got 18 games, right? So they played those 18 games, and then from there on, it's Oceanic scrims, it's SEA scrims, it's NA scrims, whatever you can fit into your schedule. And that is, of course, a lot less practice, potentially even lesser quality practice than what Thailand is doing with 54 official games. Then, of course, they're playing scrims as well. And I can bet you some of those teams are double blocking if they can fit it into their schedule. So it's a lot of practice. It's probably one of the reasons Thailand looks consistently hot. It's probably one of the reasons Thailand's going to do incredibly well in this tournament. I don't know how many games Vietnam played. Vietnam played 48. So Vietnam's in the same boat. Another reason why potentially they're one of the regions that will dominate in this tournament. You cannot deny that playing that many games of practice is perfect to hone your skills.
Absolutely. And then when we look into the list of names that will be playing in today's matchup all the way till the end of it, we qualify for the finals. Now, to my surprise is to see A-Trade Gaming here in this bracket as well, because they've been working pretty hard in a lot of all these previous tournaments, and they did not manage to get the bye into the finals. Now, I would say that teams will be looking at A-Trade Gaming to be the biggest target in all of these maps. Would you say so as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because this is a day trade that have made a roster change. They announced the roster change yesterday. So I believe it's Pooch's going out and then Vanderbilt coming in. Vanderbilt is coming. I believe it's Pooch's going out. And so this roster that we're playing with will be the roster for this qualifier, and if they qualify, then they just 3 and 4, it'll be the same roster. But it doesn't necessarily create an insane amount of problems within the team, because obviously they've been playing for quite some time. But it's hard for the players not to make the future. I don't think it's going to have an impact on their performance overall. Maybe it'll affect their floor a little bit. Maybe they have a little bit lower than floor. Who knows? But I think overall their trend will still be extremely strong area. Maybe they should cover it with them or Armory potentially should cover this lobby. There's no reason why they shouldn't. Again, if the players are strong mentally, I think they're looking at the future quite purely. And I think you have a very strong team.
Yeah, and on top of that, we also take a look at the PUBG Challenger Rumble, where of course you did not to get the coverage on that, where we see really tight competition. By the end of it all, we see great representation coming in from OCE this time. So of course, I would really want to see how well will they be able to fare against a lot of all these teams coming in from the side of the PTS as well as PVS. So based on your insights, like what could you basically pull out of it?
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. We won't get to see Bliss until the finals because they came first by a country mile. They dominated PCR, and so we'll get to see them in the grand finals. I still think, even though that grand finals lobby is going to be quite stacked, it's going to be a Bliss that is a bit reinvigorated. Potentially PCR was their honeymoon period. I don't think so, though. I think this is a Bliss but with a strong core of roles. If you're playing the correct roles in really any esport, then that's very foundational reasons for success. So I think Bliss has the roles down. Whether or not they can actually translate that into performance is a completely different question. But Panic, I mean, we're going to see Panic in this game. We've got 36 seconds until we get into a wrangle. We're going to stare at this beautiful green map for the next 30 seconds. But Panic, they're in these playoffs, and obviously I have a little bit of bias coming from Australia, but I want to see them do well. I don't think they're going to do that well. I think they're a team that is quite a bit weaker than the rest of the lobby, but I still think they can compete if they're at the top of their game. They've got some very insane mechanical players. I think if they can unlock those players' mechanics, then we're in for a pretty good show from them.
That's right. I'm definitely looking forward to see that. Well, we kick off our very first run of the day here, starting with Erangel, as we jump right into the first match of the PGS APAC qualifiers.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
I mean, I don't know what I'm expecting from Erangel to begin with. It's a bit of, honestly, it's a bit of a null conversation to discuss kind of what we're expecting the macro play of the lobby to be on a specific map. Day one, game one. So we won't discuss that. That's something we can talk about when we understand how this lobby plays. But I am expecting a lot of these teams to come out with fire in their belly and be going for plays that APAC is known for. I truly am expecting these guys to be playing like there's everything on the line, because there seriously is everything on the line. And there we go. There's the playing path. Over Military Island, going towards Georgia Pole. Lots of teams getting out in kind of close vicinity to each other. Panic has Sosnovka for free. Armory, PMA, GLS very close to each other at farm, but I think PMA is going to be mostly fine. Maybe Armory and FTF are going to get in it somewhere, and GLS can third party. But other than that, the only other thing I'm seeing is that Pachinki hot drop, which is something that, by the looks of it, we're guaranteed to get.
Yeah, it's also really interesting to look at that GATCO region where we see two teams sharing some of all these areas of play. Armor Gaming having a really smooth start at the very least, but there is going to be sort of movements towards them, or should I say they're just basically grabbing a couple of vehicles and will be journeying their way into their respective township. So not too much of a commotion going on in the early game. Meanwhile, you guys did pop up your map stream. The first phase will be ending up around the areas of that covers Milta. So it's not too shabby after all to actually kick off our very first one where teams are very familiar with playing areas like Rozak or even Polyam.
Yeah, basically where Riz is taking shots at FTF right now is the center of the circle. So if they wanted to park up here and take new compound or any of those compounds towards shelter, that might be a smart play. But Sapao, he's already got one. O'Valley tied down. Megalos is the first absolute best. Mountain bike and being deployed even. In fact, Rally Time, look at the map stream. They are quite split. They are all the way on the western coast too. Riz has been knocked. I have no idea how Trick got him. I don't even know where Trick is. He's already rotating past Riz, just to the left of him, a little bit northwest of him. He might have pulled up on that hill and shot him out of the car with the M4, but I couldn't see it. Luckily for Riz, Trick is getting out of here and James going for the res.
Oh boy, this is pretty out in the open though, so gotta start this up real quick. We'll be able to at least put in the vehicle, so not too much of an issue here to start for the side of Armory Gaming, but we did see, you know, certain teams when you don't really have too much choice. Mountain bikes, decent